Okay. Nick, let me know when you're going to start recording. I think Michelle is on her ferry. She said she's going to try to tune in, but that the Wi-Fi wasn't going to be very good. So I'm ready to start whenever. Michelle? Hi.
I don't know.
You made it.
We'll see. I could get disconnected any second.
I totally feel you. Well, yeah, I can go ahead and get started. It looks like Nick is already recording, so love that. 5 steps to attract your ideal client. You were super excited about this training, which makes me super excited because, yeah, I always, obviously, like, we want the trainings to be useful, but especially when we just like kind of choose the trainings and then you guys hear about them and you're like, oh my God, this is exactly what I need. I'm like, yes, we are nailing this. Perfect. So when I was thinking about this training, I was really excited to create it because I think there's a lot of people, not just you, but there's a lot of people that think that they're not doing everything they possibly can to attract the right clients, that maybe there's like this like secret or something that you guys are like missing. And I really want this training to solidify that you guys are not missing anything. There are like 5 specific areas that I really want to talk about today, that which of course, like, I'm going to share my perspective on like how to approach these 5 things to make sure that the clients that you are attracting are actually like people that you want to work with. And so those 5 things, which will go in depth right after this, but the 5 things I want to talk about are writing down who you actually want to work with, which I kind of helped you with the ideal client worksheet that I gave you guys. The second step is to tell other people. This is something that I have been talking about since probably 2019. I think I have an IGTV about how to get started as a copywriter. And that was like the number one question, or the number one like thing that I tell people to do, is make sure that you are legitimately like voicing who you want to work with. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. The other step is to brand yourself, but beyond that, I want to talk about the power of a personal brand. The 4th step is to price yourself properly, which I have a lot to say about this. So that's going to be a pretty heavy section. And then basically creating relevant content and experiences through the content that you produce, as well as the client journey that you bring your clients on. And then there's like a little bonus tip at the end, so stick around. And okay, so let's go ahead and start with step number 1 of, if you want to attract your ideal client, in my opinion, in my professional opinion, you have to write it down. Just like when you're writing down goals, it's just, there's like scientific studies that when you actually physically put it onto paper or put it into a Google Doc or something where it's not just in your brain, there's like studies that show you're more likely to achieve that goal. You're more likely to like notice when that thing that you wrote down is like in your sphere. And so that's why I really, really, truly believe in writing down who you actually want to attract. And kind of, it was on the ideal client worksheet. You also want to write down the why, because in my opinion, I think that sends a message that you're really serious about this person or like this business is like coming into your reality, because you're not just like surface level, okay, I want this thing. You're basically saying, this is why I want it and why it's important to me. And I think the other thing that this does when you actually physically write down who you want to work with is it solidifies who you're searching for, so that when people that you don't want to work with come into your like, again, sphere, your like little world, you can really quickly notice that that's not going to be a person that you want to like keep talking to. And hopefully the idea is to discover that before you even got on a call with them. You can kind of take a look at their business, take a look at how they're talking to you, and compare it with your ideal client and figure out if this is someone that is a red flag client, and someone that, you know, you don't want to work with. Yeah, I think kind of the last thing I want to say about this is, again, like when you are physically writing things down, it's easier to remember because you don't actually have to remember and things like little tiny things about the client that are really important to you won't shift. So you can keep taking like really intentional action that's actually going to get you where you want to be because you're not constantly switching up who your ideal client is. You've written it down, you can refer back to it, and you're not just like throwing spaghetti at the walls. So kind of similar to that, after you've written down who you actually want to work with, the second thing that you want to do is tell other people, which you'd be really surprised. Be really surprised how many people don't do that. And I think that's totally fine. I think most people kind of, at least when I first started, I viewed marketing as like a very, like, this is my thing. Like, need to know who I'm like searching for, but I don't necessarily need to like inform other people. But as I've gone through the past couple of years of business, I've realized how important it is to share with other people because you are one single person, but if like, even if just two other people know, then they have just expanded your network like infinitely because there's like that whole thing. I think it's like actually used in like pyramid schemes where like, it's like, it's like a formula basically that like when one person tells another person and then that person, like it goes off into like a network of their people and then you tell another person and it goes off into a network and like within like within you telling like 5 people, you just expanded your network into like whatever, don't count me on this, but like 1,000 people or whatever, just by telling a couple people within your immediate network who you're looking to work with. So the way that I recommend doing this is you can keep it super simple and talk to people in the DMs. I've done this before, or if I'm trying to keep it a little bit more like formal and professional, I will send an email out and basically let people in my network know who I'm looking to attract. And then what I'll do to make it something that they care about is I'll be like, well, if you come across a client that you're not interested in, I'm willing to take it on, and I'll do the same for you. So the end of that email will basically say like, is there a specific client or industry that you like to work with, so that if something comes into my like sphere, we can. Oh, hey Nick, can you mute yourself? We bought mountain bikes today, and his dad, I think, is trying to fix the mountain bikes in the garage. Well, there was something wrong with the gear. So yeah, so that's a really awesome way. And honestly, like I said at the beginning, like when it comes to attracting your ideal client, a lot of people feel like there's something big that they're missing, like, oh, I'm not doing this right, or I need to stop doing this and start doing this. But like this is so simple, and I guarantee you, if you do this one time, down the line, it's going to pay off, even if it doesn't pay off immediately. The other thing that I really like to do when it comes to working with clients that you like is collaborating with other people that are in your industry that you vibe with, and then kind of using their network to, again, like pull in those people. So for example, I'll use myself because I'm a copywriter, so I know my exact like opposite. So as a copywriter, I really like to network and collaborate with web developers and designers because they literally are half of my like project, right? So like if I'm doing a website copywriting project, I don't know how to design or develop the website, but they do. And there's a potential that they have clients that are looking for copywriters to work with them on a project. So it's kind of like you're almost, I think it's like a symbiotic relationship basically. So same thing with like if you're a like content writer or social media manager collaborating with a graphic designer that you like, that will hopefully have a similar audience or similar ideal client as you. So speaking of like telling others, I thought it would be a good idea to kind of go over the ideal client worksheet. I don't know how good your internet connection is, Michelle. So if you can't like talk back or you haven't done the client worksheet, just let me know. But I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
Have I been freezing in the video?
Nope.
Okay, then I think I'm pretty good. We're like close to the city, so the internet tower is like right there. I can see it, so I think we're in the clear.
Beautiful.
I didn't I didn't do the worksheet. I just I read through it and was like mentally answering it, but I didn't have time like throughout the week. I usually have time on like Fridays to do the worksheets.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't really go through it.
That's okay. Maybe we can kind of go through something right now. Let's see. Did you find yourself kind of drawn to the first section with all the bullet points, or did you like the one where it was like the who do you want to work with and who do you not want to work with?
That one I'm pretty stable on who I don't want to work with, which is why I'm so pumped for this training. So I was definitely drawn to the beginning part because it's not that I don't understand how to find an ideal client, it's that I have completely changed like 180 from where I was a year ago. So now I'm like in the process of redoing it.
Well, these questions are going to be super helpful for that. A lot of these questions came from, I did a branding program, and this was like part of some of the worksheets that we had to do as well, and it really helped me figure out who my client was for the business that I no longer do, which is freelance consulting. I just like don't even do that anymore, which is so typical. So I'm kind of like you. I created an ideal client worksheet for something that I don't do anymore. So like it is super useful to do this for every iteration of your business. And really the most important thing that I wanted to talk about within this worksheet is, in all reality, it's not about the specific questions that you're asking. Like, it's not about their education level. It's not about their economic status. It's not about their gender or their age. It's about like what is important about that. So, for example, let's see. What
I
do
have
they
a
do in this?
question.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So when I'm looking through the worksheet, I have a problem where I just like basically see myself and I just answer the questions for myself. Does that make sense? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'd love to work with like somebody who, I don't know, took philosophy in university, but like that's never going to happen. And it's really not that important. And like, I don't know if this is common or not.
That is that question that I had when I worked with the branding coach. I literally was like, what happens if like all of the questions are basically like it's just like me? Like I want to work with people that are like me. And she was like, ding ding ding, like ta-da, you've uncovered it. Like that's it. Like it's you want to work with people that are similar to you. So like that's the answer. It's not like you're not looking for someone that's outside of you. You're looking for someone that is very similar to you and has the same. And you say like, oh, I'm never going to find anybody that had like majored in philosophy or did that, but like you literally majored in philosophy. So you are a person that did that and is living in a van and is doing it by yourself. So definitely don't discount that. And yeah, literally a lot of my answers for why does this matter, like for I think for like ethnicity and race, I was like, it doesn't really matter who I work with, but like personally, I think working with people with a Caucasian background makes me more comfortable because I am literally like I can't pretend to understand anyone else's background. Like I am a privileged white woman. So of course I would want to work with people that are like me because I feel like I can relate to them. And again, this is like ideal client, so like the one person that you want to work with. Clearly, I'm okay with working with other people, but understanding my privilege and my place in society, my ideal client is someone that's like me, that I can relate to their struggles, and we're kind of on the same page. So that's really funny that you were asking that question. You're like, wait, what if it's literally just me? That's totally fine, and totally normal. So yeah. Let's go ahead and move on to the third step of branding yourself. As I was writing this section, I was like, I feel like so much of the things that I talk about are like, duh, Erin. But then I have to like explain. I'm like, wait, just like let me talk about my unique perspective. But when it comes to like a personal brand, I don't know if you've heard me say this or not, but the one thing that we have as like small business entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, whatever you want to call ourselves, is that we are our brand. So we're like the individuals behind the brand. And when people buy from other people, or I guess kind of just said it. When people buy things, they don't necessarily buy from brands, they buy from the people. It's like a psychology thing. They're more invested if they know the like mission behind it, things like that. And the other cool thing about having your own personal brand is that you want to share like who you are uniquely, because when you're competing against all these other small businesses or even businesses with a lot of like marketing budgets, a lot of times like you have similar missions, similar services, similar client experiences. It's not like what I'm doing or what you're doing like service wise is anything like crazy unique, and maybe it is, but what's really unique about it is that you are the one doing it. So there's like that unique aspect within that. It's you're the person that is providing this service. It's your mission. It's not like a random mission that you saw someone else come up with. It's a mission that came from your why. And so I really truly believe that when you start there and you really infuse more of yourself, your personality, your values into your brand and your business, people can start to form relationships with you and start to trust you. And those connections that you start to make, those are your currency. Those are going to be how you actually find the clients that you want to work with and the ones that pay you. So yeah, let me see how. When you form real relationships with people and brands, it's easier to attract who you want to work with. So let me go ahead and give you an example of like the power of a personal brand. Brand A and brand B. So I'll give you kind of like a little example to kind of see the power of infusing your own like personality into it, and not just being someone that like provides value within your field, but that provides value within your field and also has an original personality and a unique perspective that you're infusing into that content. So the two examples are, start with brand number one, or brand A. So brand A shares educational content. You go onto their website and their website's really professional and clean, but there's really not a whole lot of information about like the person behind the business. You know, they talk about how it got started and like why they're here, but you literally don't know who created the business. They have all the right buzzwords on their site, but it looks and sounds literally like everybody else. And there's really nothing on their website or about their brand that you're super pumped to connect them with. But the thing is, you do need a service that they offer. So you're keeping them on your list of people to consider. So that's brand A. Then we have brand B. They share educational and personal content. Their website is really clean and it's packed with a bunch of like branded touches, like micro copy, or like flair in their design choices. Maybe there's like a section where it's like a video instead of just a static picture or something unique like that. You read on their About Me page that they stopped drinking coffee after they experienced a lot of anxiety and insomnia. And you guys actually have that in common. You are totally team tea, and you really want to connect with them over this whole tea situation. And it's actually really cool because they offer a service that you actually need. So why not ask them in the email that you send out asking about their services? You can kind of connect on that little level and see if they're the right ones to work with. So out of those two brands, who would you be more excited to work with if you had to choose? Without even like meeting them, getting on the call, who were you most pumped to work with? Yeah, it's probably brand B. I see so many people online doing the same thing, and it's just, you're gonna get lost in the sea of people. Excuse me. So I think it's really important to develop that personal brand and really figure out what's important about your unique experiences and personality that you can infuse into your content. And kind of beyond that, if you're looking on your ideal client worksheet and you're right, like when it comes to the what's important about this question, and you find yourself writing a whole lot about one specific question, maybe that's something that you dive into and start addressing in your content to kind of share a little bit more personally about yourself, because that's clearly something that matters to you. So like, for example, I'll give an example of what I wrote down. So like, what kind of car do they drive? I wrote down for my ideal client, it was like someone that drives a Subaru, a Jeep, something like that, like an SUV type situation. And why does this matter to me? It matters to me because my ideal clients are people that are adventurous, people that are like risk takers, things like that. And so when I'm going into my personal brand, clearly that's something that's important to me. And so there are a lot of ways that I can infuse that in my content, in my copy, and just in my brand in general, that is automatically going to attract the people that you want to work with, because you've written down that your ideal client literally has a Jeep. And so kind of working backwards, you're like, okay, well, they're probably an adventurous person. And so they're going to resonate with content that's about being adventurous or taking risks in business or in life. And I just want to remind you guys that business is personal, and it's really important, especially as small business owners, to remember that, because that's literally the only thing we have against these like massive companies with tons of employees and super big marketing budgets. Like, we're not ever going to beat them in terms of like our awareness, because they're literally paying to get out there. And so the one thing that you have that's different is you and your ability to make personal connections. So definitely keep that in mind. Number 4, pricing properly. I have so much written about this because I have so much to say about this. So I actually went ahead and took a lot of the content that I'm going to talk about from a blog post that I wrote, because I think I touch on 3 specific things that I think that your pricing is a reflection of. And the first thing is, I think your pricing is a reflection of your experience level. The second thing is the type of client or the business that you're working with. And the third is your self-worth, which I'm going to talk about, because I think that gets people like, they're like, what? Hold on. So the first thing when it comes to pricing yourself properly is your experience level. So the way that I like to think about this is, a lot of people will think, okay, I need to be like budget friendly when I want to work with people because I want them to hire me, right? You're thinking like budget is better than like super high prices. But in my opinion, if you are like, you're not going to attract people that you actually want to work with by charging less than kind of like the industry rates, or like less than your minimum wage, or even by trying to be like competitive with the people that are just starting out, like the people whose prices are actually super low because they don't have the experience. So I like to think of it as like pricing yourself in a way that's like appropriate with your skill level, because people need people at every experience level. There are new businesses that are starting out that need that don't have the money, so they need to take on someone that doesn't really know what they're doing, that has low experience. And then there's the people that are maybe pivoting in their business, that have a little bit of extra cash flow, that are interested in investing, and they need someone that has a higher price point. But if you're just thinking about, oh, no one is going to hire me at this higher rate, then you're missing out on the people that actually need your expertise at the level that you are working at. So I highly suggest, I was really trying to Google this, but I, for whatever reason, could not type in the right keywords to get what I was looking for. But there should be like a standard rate for your industry, some sort of like guidebook, or maybe it's like an ebook, maybe it's a PDF, maybe it's an actual book. But for writers, let me actually click, because I don't know what it's actually called. I just know the acronym. It's the American Writers and Artists Institute. And this is, they offer like a PDF of copywriting rates, and they give it out every single year. And every time I go to do a new client project, or they're asking me to do a service that I've never done before, that's the first place I check. And it's really awesome, because first of all, there's been a couple things where I'm like for example, it was like newsletters, and I was considering doing $150 per newsletter. And I looked on the AWAI website, and it said that newsletters start at $200. So right off the bat, I was understanding that like, okay, it doesn't matter like what my experience level is, like newsletters are valuable for people that need it. And so at this point, it's not even really about my experience level. It's about my industry standard. And the industry standard is that people are not necessarily going below 200. So it'll help you price a little bit better when it comes to your specific industry. And the last thing I want to say about the experience level is I highly recommend not charging by the hour. I think I've talked about this before. And do you still charge by the hour, Michelle? I don't think you do. Okay, good. So anyone else that's watching this, if you, oh, go ahead.
I have one package that's hourly, and it's kind of like the downsell of the downsell of the downsell. And that's just because what I do is a little bit tricky with Kartra. Like, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and like people have different ways. So I kind of have to charge hourly for like a basic tech package, but for the most part, it's per project. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe I need to adjust my sentiment on this because obviously I'm a writer, so I have found that working hourly is that makes no sense. Like, it just doesn't. But you're right, someone like you, or even like a VA where I feel like your tasks are very like wildly different, maybe every month or every client. And so it is really hard to, unless you've worked with them before, to know exactly what they need. So you don't want to like do a per project rate where there's the potential of you working more than you're getting paid. So, okay. So I will say, if that's your case, for anybody else that's watching this, definitely feel free to charge by hour, but there's other things that you need to be like adding on to that hourly rate to make sure that it's appropriate. So I'll continue to say what I was suggesting is that if you don't need to work hourly, then you should definitely be charging by project or per month on like a retainer basis, depending on the nature of your work. So I actually did have that in there. So the way that I come to these numbers is figuring out your hourly rates. And in my opinion, if you're in the industry, your client should never see this rate. If you're charging per project, there's just really no need for them to know exactly. There's just no need. And I think that kind of goes into, it gets you in some sticky water in terms of like how they treat you as like a freelancer versus an employee when they start to get a little bit too into like, okay, but like, how are you pricing this? It's like, okay, I don't ask like a doctor how they're pricing things. Like I'm not asking like, well, what's the breakdown on the surgery? Like, why was the surgery $32,000? Like, and they'll have like little like itemized receipts, but it's a little bit different. So you want to make sure that you're not just like, this is my hourly rate and this is why. And on top of that, you want to make sure that you're adding 25% for taxes at least. This is in the US. I'm not sure about taxes in other places, so definitely like hire an accountant, talk to a bookkeeper, but make sure you're accounting for taxes in your hourly rate so that you're not adding on like another line in your invoice. That tends to kind of bring more problems as well. So just instead of being like, okay, my hourly rate is this, and then also I have to add 25% for taxes, and then also accounting for other things like admin tasks, time you spend emailing people, the invoicing fees, you just add that into your hourly rate or your monthly rate, and that's how you get it. Okay, so that was like part A of the pricing properly. The next thing I want to talk about is the type of business or the type of client that you're working with. It's kind of obvious, but if you're working with like a small brick and mortar business versus like a multinational corporation, like enterprise, like, I don't know, like a Coke or a Pepsi, something like that, your prices are going to be so wildly different, and that's totally okay. And I think it should be, because the value that the multinational corporation is going to get from a website that millions of people see each year versus like a brick and mortar, which, sorry, again, I'm kind of reverting back to like, I'm a copywriter, so I do website copy. So if you're doing website copy for this multinational organization, the value that they're getting from it is going to be so much higher because of all the extra people that are seeing it versus a website for maybe like a small brick and mortar that is just like optimized for local SEO and not many people outside of their region are going to see it. So something that I recommend that you do when it comes to pricing is I think a lot of people will call this like a getting out of bed rate. But basically your like minimum project rate for each of your services. So like what can someone pay you that will make you get out of bed? And anything under that, it's just don't even bother with it. And the way that I like to think about that is like, personally, I don't write blogs that are like for any length. It doesn't matter if it's like 50 words or whatever, for less than $250. This depends if it's a small business or if it's a corporation. I won't write blogs for less than that. And that's the price that I offer for the solopreneurs or freelancers versus the national snacking company that I work with pays $400 per blog. And in all honesty, I write more words for the $250 blog for the solopreneur than I do for the national snacking company. But again, it's that understanding that intrinsic value and the fact that their, I don't know if it's like their market value or like the revenue that they make every single year is more than enough to cover the $400 per blog that I'm charging them. Versus again, like going back to the freelancer and the solopreneur is probably not making millions of dollars every single year. And so it makes a little bit more sense to charge them a little bit less. Yeah. Okay. So that's pretty self-explanatory with the type of business. The bigger business, they more eyes on it, all sorts of things like that. You can charge a little bit more. So the last thing I want to talk about within the pricing properly is the self-worth aspect. And I want to be careful when I talk about this because it's not like if you have low self-esteem or self-worth, then you should charge less. If you have higher self-esteem or self-worth, you should charge more. The way that I see this, so maybe there's someone in your industry that's charging $1,000 for a project, right? And it's the appropriate amount. You would love to charge that much. It feels like a really nice rate. People are paying it. They're not bulking at it too much. But if you don't feel like you deserve $1,000 a month for what you're producing, then it's going to be impossible for you to charge that amount. It's almost like just making sure that you feel confident in your prices because you have to convey those prices to your client, right? And if you're coming to them and you're like, yeah, my services are $1,000 a month, but I'm totally willing to negotiate. I don't even really know if that's a good price. Like if you're kind of like second guessing yourself or even just not feeling confident repeating the price to your client, they can see that, they can sense that. They're not going to have confidence in you. And I think that's a huge thing when it comes to the pricing is that like you have to feel worthy of that price. And yeah, if you don't, they're just not gonna be excited to sign the contract. Like it's a lot for people to pay other people to do things for them. $1,000 is a lot of money. And you need to be confident in what you're producing so that other people can be confident in you. So that's kind of where that self-worth aspect comes in. Again, it's not if you have low self-worth, you need to be charging less. It's that you need to understand where you are in that journey to understand if you're really undercharging because you don't have the experience or if you're undercharging because you don't feel like you deserve to be paid the appropriate amount. And kind of alongside that is like this whole idea of like money mindset, which we've talked about so much. So I'm not going to, go over too much with it, but I did kind of want to give you like my top 3, whatever, like recommendations or things that I do to invite abundance into my life and just like try to make myself more confident in like what I'm doing because I think it's a struggle sometimes. And I think that's totally okay to admit. Especially like a new service, something you haven't priced before. I know when I started doing strategy calls last year, I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm supposed to charge. I don't know if the value is going to be there. But I really did. I sat down, I thought through my pricing. I was like, okay, how long is it going to take me to do this? How much is my minimum pricing? And then I was thinking about the value that I was providing. And I was like, no, I literally have a master's in strategic communication. Like I am capable of doing this strategy call. So that's where like that whole that self-worth and mindset comes into view because I literally wanted to charge like $100, and I was like, no, I think that's a little bit too little for the amount of value that I provide in an hour and a half. And so I decided to charge $175, which I think is a very reasonable rate. Something that I feel comfortable telling people. I don't feel like I'm like swindling people out of their money. I feel like it's a very appropriate rate for what they're getting, and I feel confident stating it to people. And so no client I've ever worked with has had any issue with accepting that rate. So that's kind of how I see it play out in real life. Okay, so the top 3 recommendations I have, practice gratitude. Sorry, I just have to say it. But truly, I really do think that when you are actually sit down and show gratitude and are grateful for what you currently have, it's just a way to invite more abundance or more into your life. And it's honestly just really tough to appreciate things when you're constantly like mad about what you don't have or what's not coming in. And so this is a great way to kind of shift that perspective a little bit. The other thing is money mantras. You've probably heard my favorite one, which is the money comes to me easily from places known and unknown. That's my favorite one ever in the whole world. The other ones I like are I have everything I need. I am worthy of the rates I charge, and I'm abundant and attract what I desire. And they're really simple. Take what you need, leave what you don't. Or you can create your own. Those are just ones that I really like. And the last thing that I like to do when it comes to like working on my money mindset is treating my finances and my money like a partner. And I do this by doing money dates. So I'll literally sit down and go through like my taxes, and I'll put on bossa nova, light a candle, just take it really relaxed. And it helps me just feel more confident. You know, I'm not entering into like my financial world like an anxious mess with like coffee and like just drinking. So I highly recommend that. The other thing is there's this idea of like energy, or this idea of money as energy, and like it needs somewhere to flow. So if you believe in that, then this idea of like not going to the extremes, so not overspending and also not never buying anything, I think is really important, because you're kind of allowing that the money to come into your life and then leave, and then more come in, leave. And I think that's a great way to do it, is not going to the extreme. And the last thing is something I talk about all the time, is understanding your goals and what you want out of the future. Basically, like, why are you working so hard for the money, or why are you trying to find these specific clients? If you don't understand the why, which is why it's on the item client worksheet under every single question, it's going to be a lot more difficult to attract them, in my opinion, because you're not as clear. So that covers the 4th section. The last step that I have before I get into like that little bonus tip is the creating relevant content and experiences. When people hear like attracting an ideal client, you think of basically like not doing anything, right? Like not taking action. You're like, okay, I just got to sit here, almost like manifesting, what people think manifesting is. So like, if I just write it down and practice gratitude, it'll just come to me. And I don't agree with that. I think that you still need to make sure that you are active online, and you also have to be making sure that you're active in specifically the places that your ideal client hangs out online. And again, like attracting doesn't mean doing nothing. It just means being really intentional about where you're showing up, and strategically about where you're showing up, and then infusing like a little bit of trust in there, because obviously you have to have trust to understand that like you can only do so much, but there's kind of that extra aspect that you can't control. But if you're doing all of these steps and you're getting really clear on who you want to attract, then it will come. And Michelle, this is related directly to the question that you had earlier about like So let me see if I can actually pull it up so everyone knows what we're talking about when they watch the replay.
Sorry, I have to get to the car, so I'm switching.
No,
but I'm listening still.
You're good. You're good. It was about. I think it might be in a different section, maybe calendar. Okay. So your question was you're looking for some direction on how to talk to the people in your niche. Right now, you're just resting on the fact that you look like the part, but you want your leads to understand that you know their industry and are the best person to support their product because you can speak the industry language. So I love that, first of all. And I have a suggestion for you that you've probably heard of before, but market research. There are a lot of really awesome questions that you can ask in a market research call that is going to help you with creating the content that is going to attract the client that you want. The main thing is when you are doing market research and you're asking your ideal client or past clients that you've worked with that you really liked working with the questions, you want to make sure that you are copying their words and their phrases down verbatim, because exactly how they talk and in the same cadence and the same the way that they say things is going to be exactly how you want to talk in your own services. So if someone, or in your own copy, sorry. So if someone, here, I'll share one of the questions. So if one of the questions is what was your situation or problem before I helped you? And they're talking about, they felt disorganized. What was their situation or problem? They felt like they didn't understand the automation aspect of their business. If you're using words like gain clarity and feel better about your business, those are not connecting, right? They're completely different things. It may be what you think that people are getting from your product when they buy it or when they work with you, but that's not what the people are looking for, right? They're looking for organization. They're looking for understanding of their business, but you're offering clarity and whatever over here, like confidence maybe. So again, using their words verbatim when you do market research calls or emails or have them fill out a questionnaire, whatever, even on testimonials that people write for you, literally take their exact words. Another example is Michelle, I think in one of your testimonials for the SSI, you wrote about come for the business, stay for the friendships. And that is literally in every single thing on our sales page now. I'm like, that is perfect, because you're exactly the type of person that you are, what you're doing in your business, you're living in a van. Those are the type of people that we want in the SSI. And so taking your words, someone that we already love that's in our community, and just literally putting it on the website is a great way to attract the people that we want, which is people like you. Let's see what else. The other thing you can do, so besides market research, because I know that sometimes it can take a lot of time, or maybe you don't know exactly who to reach out to. The other ways that you can kind of you can do this is using Google to figure out what people are asking for and what your ideal clients are searching maybe. Another thing is to go through Facebook groups and seeing what people are what questions people are asking, things like that, and especially Facebook groups that are more niche, which I'm trying to think of one, but anyways, if you're looking for specific clients, going into a very specific Facebook group where every single one of them is literally your ideal client, then just scrolling through is going to be super helpful for you. And kind of related back to this whole step of creating the relevant content, once you have those specific words that people are using, the specific questions that people are having, the results that they're looking for, you can then create content on the specific platforms that they're hanging out on that are speaking directly to them. And that's how this all kind of works together. I do want to share, I have a list of questions maybe I'll leave it up at like the very end so people can like screenshot it or whatever. But I have a list of questions that that I want to share that you can literally use in your market research to get those the words and phrases from them that you can use in your copy. So yeah, going back to those two brands that we talked about, brand A and brand B, the one that was like totally boring and the other one that you actually wanted to work with because they were an actual human being. I truly believe that like when you actually connect with your audience, those people that do that are the ones that make the money because you are a human being and the person that you're trying to attract is also a human being. Like, yes, they run a business. Yes, they are business owners, but they're literally humans, and humans are wired for connection. Like, we're social animals. So just remember that when you're talking to people, when you're trying to attract people, just being a human and acting like one. And again, alongside of this whole creating the right experiences for them, this is kind of moving into like their brand experience and their like client journey. So when you think about your ideal client and what they expect when they work with you, like is the person that you're trying to attract, are they expecting like a welcome packet or some sort of like client gift when they sign up with you? Maybe they're looking for someone that is doing like just a quick done for you service. They're looking for like super minimal interaction. They don't want to get on a call. And thinking about this specifically, those two questions, is really going to help you create the experience that then attracts the people that you want to work with. Because once they go through this experience that they were kind of expecting and hoping for, it's going to be a lot easier to keep them around and potentially attract other people just like them. I always like to think about how I know there's a lot of people that will hop on like, or I think Christy said that she has like something like an hour to 2 hour worksheet that she gives every single one of her clients before she starts. To me, that sounds so overwhelming and definitely not how I want to work with someone. I personally want to like be able to tell them what's going on with me. And so just right there, that's something completely different. Like I am looking for something that I can get on a call. And so Christy, I may not end up working with Christy if I find out that she has this like big, long thing for me to fill out. And that's totally okay. But what that's doing is pushing away people that she doesn't want, that aren't ideal with her, like that aren't her ideal. I'm back.
Oh,
Oh my God. Really, we still can't figure out why it does that, but okay, moving on. Anyway, so it really does probably seem like a weird question to ask, like, oh, are they expecting like a welcome packet or a client gift? But again, like asking that question, why? Like, why does it matter? Why does it matter that your ideal client is looking for someone that is just doing the done for you service versus wants you to spend 2 hours working on their welcome package? Like that is all important to understand because at least from what I can tell from Christy, the reason that she does that is because she wants to make sure that the people that she is working with are committed to their business and willing to sit down for 2 hours and write about what they need. So that right there, she's just automatically eliminating people that are not serious about their branding. And that makes sense because her branding packages are not $1,000. Her packages are expensive as they should be. Because of her experience level and because of the clients that she's working with, kind of going back to all of the other steps we were talking about. So that should give you some good things to think about. And yeah, just really thinking about their journey and what your ideal client is expecting from you is going to be really important. Oh, something else I wanted to say kind of after all of this, I was in the DMs with someone and they were just asking me for advice about getting clients and things like that. And I recommended that they reach out to current clients that they have that they like working with, and basically like telling them that they offer additional services that maybe like weren't discussed on the first call. And I think that's a great way to attract more of the clients that you want to work with, because you probably are already working with an ideal client right now. And so there's no need to necessarily like attract more clients. If you really like that client, then work with that client more. And the way that I suggest doing this is just sending them a really quick email, basically letting them know like, hey, I really enjoyed working with you. Don't like be like, oh my God, you're my ideal client and I want to work with you more, but just whatever, like, hey, I really want to work with you. I really enjoy working with you, and I just wanted to let you know about additional services I offer that we didn't talk about in the proposal that you may not know I offer. And you would probably be pretty surprised at how many people are like, oh, I didn't know you offered that, or hey, add that to the contract for next month, or I'm so glad you mentioned that. One of my friends is in need of someone that does XYZ. Let me connect you with them. So it's awesome there. Okay, I'm finally at the end. The bonus tip that I wanted to give you today is to turn away clients that are not turn away clients that are not the perfect fit. And it can be really stressful. I mean, it's stressful to turn anybody away. Like, I'll admit it. Even though I have a full roster of clients, when people come into my world and are like, "Oh my God, I really, really want to work with you. Like, let's get on a call." I'm like, "Oh my God, yes. I don't even know who you are, but let's get on a call. Like, I want the money." But what I found is that when you turn away people that aren't the perfect fit, like the exact thing that you want, this lends to you being able to do a few things. You can recommend them to other people, or you can refer them out. And this literally is a win-win for everybody. Like, when we're talking about relationships and building relationships, like, this is like, people will love you. And this is, again, going back to that second tip of telling other people, like, if you have had a conversation with someone and you know what their ideal client is, and some random person comes into your life and you're like, yeah, you're not really for me, but hey, I know a great person that does this, let me refer you out to them. It just shows you're so serious about what you're doing, and it's just, like I said, a win-win for everybody. And yeah, I mean, I guess understand that it's not going to be easy like every single time. It's probably going to be hard, especially if you're in between clients or you're not sure where the next like client or the next money that you need is coming from. But I really truly believe that if you are only working with the people that you want, it gives you more time and space to attract the people that you want into your life even more. So instead of working with those people that are taking up so much time and energy, you're going to have more space to welcome them in. So yeah, that's my bonus tip for y'all. Do you guys have any questions? I know I kind of just threw a lot out there.
I guess my question still, I feel like I know how to talk to them, and like the copy and the marketing stuff is what I do. So like that aspect
Yeah.
I'm pretty good with. I'm just struggling with like where to find them. Because I've always been just like posting stuff and letting people find me, and that's worked for the past couple of years. But I feel like it's gotten a little bit harder just because I think everybody's working online now.
Yeah.
So I forgot about Facebook groups up until very recently, and I'm like just starting to go back into them. So maybe that's all I need to do. But I feel like I don't like when people come at me and pretend that like they're interested in what I do, but really they're trying to get me as a client. And I don't want to be that person who just joins a bunch of like fitness groups, for example, with the intent of only booking clients. You know, like it's just.
So yeah, I totally feel you. I guess if you approach it this way, because this is kind of how I like to go into Facebook groups, is you go in there with the intent of providing value. And this is where having like an omni-channel strategy where you're not just relying on one specific channel. Like, so a lot of people, like, I think what you're trying to do is like go into Facebook groups thinking that the client is going to directly come from the Facebook group. But in my experience, what happens is if you go into a Facebook group and you provide a lot of value and you're commenting on specific things as it relates to things like in your mission, things like values of yours, stuff that you like, services that you offer, and you're sticking to those topics within the Facebook group, you start to gain people's trust. So they start to see your name coming up more, and that develops a little bit of mystery. Most likely what you're going to have is people interested in like realizing, oh my God, this person's amazing, either the first time they see you or the 17th time they see you, clicking on your page, going through to your Instagram or wherever, like whatever you have most prominent, going to your website and kind of seeing through there. And a lot of times they will just come into your community and come into your network. And then all of the other content and things that you're creating are then developing that trust factor, developing, I guess it's called the know, like, and trust thing. And then that's kind of how the clients come. It is a long game. I mean, I am all about long games. That's why I think I am so adamant about forming relationships, because at least for me, especially, I really started doing that within the past couple of years, and it started to pay off. Like, all of the clients that I have now did not come from me reaching out to them. It came from referrals. And from people in my industry, from people like, I think I say this all the time, one of my highest paying website clients came from another copywriter, just because I'm friends with her on Instagram. And she, like, yeah, I really truly think that if you develop relationships like that, that it's a really easy way to find people. And that's how I would recommend engaging in Facebook groups, rather than maybe a lot of people will respond to like specific job opportunities, which I think is fine. It's okay to throw your name in the hat. But I think if you're playing the long game, it can be a lot easier. And you're really awesome at email. So maybe creating something for, if you see that a lot of people are going onto your website from Facebook, which you can see through analytics, you can be like, okay, cool. Let's find out why people are going to my website, what exactly they're interested in when they get there. Create some sort of lead magnet to get them into your email list, or tell people to go to your Instagram, like however you want to do that. So that's kind of how I would approach it. Does that feel attainable?
Well, yeah, and that's kind of how I did it, like how I built my business, was being in Facebook groups, like Kartra Facebook groups, and just answering people's questions all the time. And then people started like asking me to work with them. But then I started getting all my business through Instagram, stopped using Facebook groups. And then the people that were coming through the Facebook groups, none of them were like my ideal clients. They were like people who were on a budget, or who couldn't get themselves organized and realized they were launching something the next day, and like just all sorts of people that I did not want to work with. So I just stopped using Facebook groups. But I don't know why I haven't thought about using them for my new niche, which is like just fitness, wellness.
Yeah. I'm thinking, so, and if fitness and wellness is your niche, I would go back and hold on. I would go back through the ideal client workshop or the worksheet and get really into probably like the first 10 questions. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. Maybe the first like 7, where it talks about education level, gender, age. Those demographic stuff is going to be important. You can like do, I guess this is market research. You can just do research on where specific types of people hang out online. So you can literally research like what the audience of Facebook is, right? And if your ideal client age is 35, they're definitely not going to be on TikTok. Probably, they're probably going to be on Facebook and LinkedIn statistically, right? Because you're doing your research and you're realizing that older people are usually on Facebook and on Facebook and LinkedIn, and the millennials are, typically on Instagram and sometimes TikTok. If your target is Gen Z and you're not on TikTok, like I don't know what you're doing. Like, right. And so this is how I would think about it. Like that is really getting really clear on who they're like, whatever. Is it women? Probably going to be on Pinterest. Is it men? Probably not going to be on Pinterest. So you can kind of figure out the exact places, and then likely you'll probably find that they're probably on Instagram, from what I know about you and what I know about your ideal client. So once you get that confirmation, then you can just know that your ideal client is on Instagram. So with that information, you can realize, okay, is what I'm doing on Instagram working? And if it's not, then figure out what you need to adjust, because you know that your client is on Instagram, but if you're not finding them, then there's just something that you need to adjust and experiment with.
Yeah, I think I'm still at the beginning stage of that. So I think maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse a little bit.
Maybe. Yeah. Something else that I want to remind you, because I've had to remind myself as well, is if you are pivoting or starting a new business, it takes time. Like, it takes time. You're not going to be making the same amount that you were making as a archer person doing, you know what I mean? Like, it's because you're reinventing yourself. As something I've had to talk with about a client that I have, she has a new coaching business, and she was like a service provider before, and she's like, I'm just like not getting the same traction, and people aren't really, like following me. And I'm like, well, they are. It's just not happening. You don't have 1,000 followers yet. You have 400, but that's because you just switched to coaching like 6 months ago, and people need to figure out who you are and stuff like that. So yeah, give yourself some grace for that. It will take some time.
Yeah, in my mind, I'm like launching in July, so I'm not even started that yet.
Yeah, I know. It's so tough though. And I think it's even harder when you have an established business and you're moving into a different one, because you're like, well, I already have this momentum going. You think it kind of applies. It just doesn't, especially if your ideal clients are completely different. You have a whole new set of people to attract.
Everybody who I used to work with, they were all like business coaches, and that's who I was working with. And now I'm like, nope, I don't want no VA. I don't want no business coach, no VA, none of this coach, none of them. I don't want a single one of them. I have to change everything.
You know what actually could be interesting as well, and I don't know, because no one knows what the algorithm does ever. But I'm thinking, if you follow a lot of coaches or you're interacting with a lot of coaches' content, I'm wondering if that's maybe keeping you in that cycle of only really being in that kind of world. So maybe if you tried.
I unfollowed a bunch of them. I'm going to go in. Yeah, I have to go now, though. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's really nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much for all of this. It was awesome.
Of course, anytime. If you have any other questions, just let me know.
For sure. Okay, bye.
Bye. Awesome.